Hello, history lovers. This is Gallus Thrax, and here is the real reason that Gladiator 2 is not as historically accurate as the first Gladiator movie. So it's been a few months now since the long-anticipated sequel to Ridley Scott's historical epic Gladiator came out in theaters. And like many of you, after seeing Gladiator 2 in the theaters, I had to reflect on all the historical inaccuracies in this second film. So without any spoilers, here's a quick breakdown of the accuracy of both films. The first film opens with the Marcomannic Wars, a real series of wars that happened in the late 2nd century between the Roman Empire and Germanic tribes in Germania. While the second film opens with the conquest of Numidia, which happened not in the year 200 AD as the film shows, but in 112 to 106 BC, 300 years before. Now, at the time the second film takes place, there is a war of conquest against a nation in North Africa, but they're not on the coast, they are in the interior. Their name is Garima. And the conquest of Garima does coincide with the second high tide of empire, the first being in 117 AD under Trajan, and that brings us to the most grievous point, how the emperors are portrayed in the second film. See, in the first film, we have the depiction of the latter end of the Antonine dynasty. We have what seems like an accurate portrayal of the personalities of the philosopher Emperor Marcus Aurelius versus his son Commodus, who was a very decadent emperor. However, in the second film, we really get off the tracks. The emperor who brings us to the second high tide of the Roman Empire is completely written out of Gladiator 2. His name is Septimius Severus. He is the father of Geta and Caracalla, which are portrayed in the film. Now, Geta and Caracalla did rule together for 1 year, but Geta and Caracalla were not twins. Caracalla was actually the much older brother, and Caracalla was always more powerful. Also written out of the film is their mother, Julia Domna, who played a big role in ruling the empire. And this is the worst part. Caracalla is portrayed in the film as being some kind of soft man-child. In reality, Caracalla was an evil Maximus. He was a soldier emperor, loyal to his troops, and he was all about being a general, and he was all about military discipline. However, he was very cruel in his day-to-day dealings with people. Ridley Scott also missed the opportunity to portray the construction of the Great Baths of Caracalla, which I think are even more impressive than the Colosseum in many ways. Visit those ruins in Rome. They are absolutely amazing. You will not be disappointed. Another missed opportunity in Gladiator 2 is not portraying the Parthian Wars, which were happening at this time. The Parthian Empire was the centuries-old arch-enemy of Rome. This war with Parthia was actually set off by the real-life Red Wedding from Game of Thrones, and this Red Wedding was planned by Caracalla. And this war with Parthia also played a big role in the rise of Macrinus. And it would have been an awesome opportunity to see Denzel Washington leading an army of the Roman Empire against Parthia. And I do want to say that Denzel Washington's portrayal of Macrinus was the highlight and saving grace of Gladiator 2. And yes, it is a possibility that Macrinus was black. But back to the Severans. Until the 4th century, all Italians were exempt from paying taxes. Therefore, the people of the city of Rome would not have felt the burden of expensive wars. The early 3rd century was a time of great prosperity for the Roman Empire. Roman historians record that at this time, the city had a massive grain surplus that would last years in case of a famine. It was at this time that the Roman welfare system was switched over from giving out raw grain to the citizens to giving out freshly baked bread. And like Macrinus, the Severan dynasty had their roots in North Africa. They were a mix between ethnic Roman colonists and the native Berber elite. The Mediterranean coast of Africa was 100% Romanized by this time. From modern-day Morocco to Western Libya, Latin was the dominant language, while on the coast of Eastern Libya and Egypt, Greek had already taken root prior to the rise of Rome. So what went wrong here? Did Ridley Scott simply become lazy over the years? Did he decide that historical accuracy didn't matter? No. He actually did the same thing for both films. Here's the ironic part. The root cause of the gross historical inaccuracies of Gladiator 2 is the one thing that makes the film groundbreaking. Gladiator 2 is the first film to dramatize this period in Roman history. Please tell me in the comments, do you know of any other films or TV shows which depict Caracalla, Geta, Septimius Severus, Macrinus, or anybody else from this time in Roman history? Everything historical in the original Gladiator film had already been depicted in other films and TV shows. The passing of the wise old philosopher Emperor Marcus Aurelius, followed by the reign of his decadent and tyrannical son Commodus, was depicted in the 1964 film The Fall of the Roman Empire. It stars the glamorous Sophia Loren as Lucilla and the original Obi-Wan Kenobi as Marcus Aurelius. Commodus is slightly less evil, but rules in much the same way. Marcus Aurelius talks about a dream that is Rome, uniting all humanity in justice and prosperity. But there is no anachronistic talk of resurrecting the Republic, something that somebody in the 2nd century, anybody in the 2nd century, would not think about. I think it's clear that Ridley Scott got the idea of a wise emperor wanting to resurrect the Republic from the 1976 BBC miniseries I, Claudius. This series is a masterpiece. You have the grittiness of New Hollywood. You have classically trained British actors, and you have very historically accurately made sets. And there is one episode where you have Caligula using Gimli to outmaneuver Captain Picard. In the 1st century AD, after the death of the first emperor Augustus, there were several conspiracies to resurrect the Republic. At this time, there were still some very old people who could remember the Republic, as well as lots of people whose parents and grandparents told them stories about the Republic. And with emperors like Tiberius and Caligula following Augustus, it's understandable that people would want to revert back to the Republic. In I, Claudius, Emperor Claudius is one of the people which holds these sentiments. Claudius is played by Derek Jacobi, who also plays Senator Gracchus in both Gladiator films. Ridley Scott figured by the year 2000, most theatergoers wouldn't have seen these two productions. And he was right. I want to rattle off a few more points here. The Roman Republic was not an egalitarian democracy. It took hundreds of years for the Roman Republic to even grant citizenship to the majority of Italians, such as the Pompeians. It wasn't until the Caesars that we had citizenship being granted to conquered peoples outside of Italy. And finally, in the year 212, it was none other than Caracalla who granted citizenship to all freeborn people of the Roman Empire. 40 to 50 million men and women were granted the right to a fair trial by a jury of their peers. And both films really fail to depict the beauty of Roman interior spaces. The corridors of the Colosseum, the Imperial Palace, the Senate House. Where is the paint? Where are the paintings? Rome at this time went far beyond the old city walls. It was the world's first urban sprawl. They simply felt secure enough not to have a wall. The interior of the Senate House in the films looks like something from the time of Alexander the Great. In the 2nd and 3rd centuries AD, the Senate and the emperors would meet together in the Pantheon. Ridley, you could have used your movie magic and your millions and millions of dollars to have Joaquin and Denzel giving speeches to the Senate in the Pantheon.